Against the Storm is one of the best city builders on the market, and while the RNG can be punishingly brutal at times, the roguelite elements will keep you on your strategic building toes, as no two settlements will ever be the same. This game has been in early access since last October, and at 1.0 release, it is sitting at a 95% approval rating on Steam with over 15,000 reviews, so I can easily say that the game speaks for itself in regards to how good it is. Hello everybody, this is Havoc with my review on Against the Storm, where we'll take a look at dang near everything about what Against the Storm has to offer. A quick note before we begin. I am associated with Hooded Horse, Against the Storm's publisher, but it has to be stated that I'm not receiving any form of incentive by Hooded Horse to make this video, financial or otherwise. If you want more details on that, check out the Hooded Horse Association video in the description below. But also, if you would like to support this channel, I have a Nexus GG game store account, and on there is a wide selection of games that I value the most, of which Against the Storm is one of them. And if you were to purchase that from that game store, I would receive a commission that is separate to Nexus GG and Havoc and is not associated with Hooded Horse in any way, shape, or form. Now with that out of the way, grab a snack, sit back and relax, and let's first take a look at what is Against the Storm, a fantasy apocalypse with a twist. Let's start with the basics. Against the Storm is a roguelite city builder, meaning it's a city building game with twists and mechanics that ensure that no settlement is built the same no matter how hard the player might try, where you'll proceed through runs of these settlements, forming that roguelite gameplay loop in which the genre is noted for. Storyline-wise, you are a viceroy of the Queen sent out to explore the regions around the capital smoldering city and rebuild civilization in a world that never stops raining. As the viceroy, you'll need to establish settlements and garner reputation with the Queen in order to build up resources that will rebuild said civilization. Only, the Queen can be a bit impatient, and while you'll try to fulfill various tasks that increase reputation, the longer you take or the more tasks you take on, the faster the Queen's impatience grows. If impatience fills up before reputation, it's over, you've lost the settlement that you were building. If that wasn't pressure enough, remember the rain I mentioned. Every 40 years, it culminates into a massive storm that wipes the map clean outside of the smoldering city, and you have to start over. While that seems pointless, there is a gameplay progression loop that makes a lot of sense when you put the pieces together. Every successful settlement rewards you with resources and seal fragments, with resources allowing you to purchase upgrades in the smoldering city that will make your settlements more efficient. And throughout this world are long lost and broken ancient seals that need reforged, which require a different resource called seal fragments in order to establish a settlement near them and tackle that unique event. Each seal that you reforge extends the cycle between the storms by a number of years, and thus the gameplay loop goes like this. You establish settlements to explore the world, gather seal fragments and smoldering city resources, purchasing upgrades along the way to make more efficient settlements, which allows you to complete a settlement faster, meaning you can explore deeper into the world, find harder ancient seals, reforging them to have more times between cycles to establish more settlements in a single cycle. So it's not at all pointless when you get the big picture, assuming that you got the big picture. With smoldering city upgrades persisting throughout your entire campaign, you'll be able to upgrade things like making your villagers faster, obtaining more starting buildings, increase production speed, reduce the speed of the Queen's impatience, all things that give you the ability to progress into harder and harder difficulties, which will be required to reforge those harder seals and get deeper into the game. With the premise of the game established and a brief look into the gameplay loop progression, it's time to dive in deep into this grand strategy level of city building. Seriously, there's a lot. Against the Storm has a lot going on, even by traditional city building standards, and to be quite honest, requires a video series all on its own to really comprehend, which is why I made a tutorial for absolute beginners that you can watch after this in the top right corner of this video. We can start with its variety in humanoid species. At the time of 1.0 release, there are currently 5 of them in the game: humans, beavers, lizards, harpies, and foxes. Each of these species has a variety of job specialties and desires to keep their resolve or their morale high. Resolve is necessary to keep the villagers in your settlement. If it drops below 0, they'll start leaving, emptying jobs and shutting down production of whatever they were tasked to do, on top of increasing impatience with the queen. On the flip side, push their resolve above the threshold, and they'll generate reputation with the queen, allowing you to fulfill your settlements faster. I both love and hate the variety of species in Against the Storm, and it will 100% drive how you play each city. Lizards, foxes, and harpies like their meat, but they like different types of refined meat, meaning I have to think ahead to production lines if I'm leaning heavily into these species. You'll always want beavers if possible, as they can chop down wood faster and are best used in engineering jobs, or humans for farming and crafting ale. Both of these latter species really enjoy having coats on hand, and somewhere to consume that ale is pretty darn nice as well. You'll need to provide for your different species by giving them their own special housing, or making skewers or biscuits, or building temples and taverns to satiate religion, education, leisure, and luxury. Each settlement will only ever have 3 of these species, forcing the player to adapt to what's been giving them, meaning production lines, jobs filled, buildings chosen. It will be different every time, just because of the villager variety every settlement. On top of that is the reaction to the world around you. Surrounded by forests of different types, depending on the biome you've selected, you'll have to venture out and cut into various levels of glades, which contain event-oriented caches, totems, buildings, and creatures to solve however you can, or however you must. It might be easier to break down a cache to nab some sweet resources, but a little bit of patience, and you might have the resources to gain reputation with the queen instead. Showing mercy to a creature may cost you some precious tools, but the forest will see you as compassionate and reduce its hostility towards you. This is doubly pressured with dangerous or forbidden glades, where glade events have a timer to complete or something detrimental can happen to your settlement. Typically, it will stack if you continue not to resolve it. This means that yes, the forest is, in a way, alive around you, and it 100% sees you as hostile. Every villager you have, every woodcutter job, every glade you open, every year your settlement is still going. So many factors can contribute to hostility, and as hostility increases, various negative mysteries will take over during the stormy season. Your villagers' resolves might drop, production might slow down, heck, villagers may start dropping dead on some of those higher difficulties. You'll have to balance your decisions to combat hostility, and while there are indeed several ways to fight it, just how you'll go about it is completely up to you and the world around you. If it stopped there, I think we'd have a solid city builder on our hands, but it doesn't. One of the more intriguing mechanics of the game are perks. These perks are continuous effects on your settlements, and they'll vary just as much as any of the other roguelite elements in the game. You find perks through every form of major decision. Fulfilled orders from the queen, glade events, seasons, biomes, traders, you name it. These perks can and will do crazy things in your settlement, like straight production boost to harvesting resources, providing you with certain goods on the completion of other goods, such as receiving 3 barrels just for every 10 planks you make. It can also boost the production time required to make something, and having a perk that, say, allows you to produce packs of goods 33% faster means you'll be able to set up more trade routes in a shorter amount of time, generating more amber, which is the game's currency, and therefore allowing you to purchase more things from traders to help progress your settlement. In a brilliance of UI and UX design, you can see all of your perks in the bottom corner of your screen at any given time, giving you some food for thought on deciding what buildings you may want to pursue or resources to collect. And just like any rogue-type game, there are rarities, which means you'll want to try your best to acquire those to use them. The only caveat to perks is that they reset with every new settlement. You cannot carry them over into another one, so don't get too tied up in them, they just don't last. One of the biggest aspects of the game is your hearth. It is the center of your settlement. It protects your villagers from the corruption of the storm through burning different resources, and it is susceptible to corruption of the blight rot found in the rains of the game. This corruption manifests itself in what are called blight rot cysts that open up during the storm season, and they produce the corruption that can overwhelm the hearth. Villagers will die if this blight rot overtakes the capacity of the hearth, so you always want to be mindful of how much there is of it. You have perks and yearly cornerstone choices that can increase the capacity, but you can also counter the buildup by hiring villagers to purge these cysts with basically fire. Within the boundaries of the hearth, you'll have to keep your housing and your services, while also doing a bit of decorating to level it up, with benefits including boosted resolve and increased production. Keep your hearth stocked, its villagers housed and serviced, and your population will be, well, relatively safe from harm. I could seriously go on and on and on about all the mechanics I haven't even mentioned yet, like how there's 3 types of waters to collect that further boost production or resolve through pipes, maybe how you can set recipe limits so you don't run out of resources too quickly, or maybe dig into trading with other settlements to have a steady income of amber to purchase perks and goods. There's simply too many to tackle in this video, but I believe the point is clear. Against the Storm's mechanics culminate into a city builder whose level of strategy cannot be understated, especially when it's coupled by some seriously intense, often brutal RNG. The odds won't always be in your favor. There's another level that I've only briefly mentioned throughout this video, and it's the mechanic of RNG, where perks, orders, buildings, permits, cornerstones, resources, villager types, even glade events, all are randomized with every single settlement. Now, at the beginning of your career as a viceroy, you'll start with very few buildings to found your settlement with, meaning you will have to heavily rely on a few ways to gain more building blueprints. But the kicker is that RNG aspect. The queen gives you 3 sets of 3 blueprints to choose from, and you have to hope that you have a building that can help you, because again, between species needs and desires, objectives you want to hit, or even the orders that the queen gives you, you do have to be selective on what buildings you choose in these instances. For instance, let's say you have a species selection that can all benefit from biscuits. As such, you need a small farm since it gives grain, which can be used for a wide range of production products as well. So given the chance, you should select the small farm blueprint to guarantee grain production. But now, you need a building that can process that into flour for biscuits, for which all 3 species gain a big boost to resolve if they consume them. Then you need a stage 3 production building that can actually make those biscuits from the flour. So you need that farm because the biome you selected has vast quantities of farmland. Your starting blueprints roll, the queen never gives you the chance to select any farm blueprints. The order she gives you never produce a farm, and then traders come with blueprints of many, no farms. Or even worse, you get the farm, you get the mill to make some flour, and then a building to make biscuits never pops up. It has happened to me, and lordy, is it frustrating and deflating. There's also the fact that some buildings create products much more efficiently than others. Let's keep with the flour thing. A press can process 8 grain and turn it into 10 flour. However, a rain mill only uses 5 grain to make said 10 flour. A crude workstation takes 6 fiber to make 2 fabric, but a weaver only needs 2 fiber. So that element of efficiency will also play into your blueprint decisions, but again, no guarantee that a more efficient building will ever show up. This can be punishing at times, when you go into a game plan to do X things, but are never given the opportunity to because the RNG gods simply forsaken you on a settlement. And there will be times where you either just have to completely switch production methods and hope for the win on an extended timeline, or just give up on the settlement. And I will admit I have done that on several occasions early in my time with the game. I will give massive props to the developers of this game though, because not only do they present a fantastic user interface that will show you if a blueprint will be better than what you currently have at making a product, but they also provide you with the ability to choose from a range of ingredients to make about any product out there. This does go away to mitigate the damage from being forsaken by RNG, yet there are still just times where it truly is a brutal grind to get through a settlement, especially on higher difficulty levels. On the flip side of this, sometimes you'll get everything you wanted. The stars will align perfectly, and it seems like every single order is simple to achieve, every reward is truly beneficial, you get all the best perks, and every building blueprint presented grants you a building you really need. RNG always has a chance to go both ways, and while I might cry at how it treats me on the bad days, those good runs really do make up for it. So it's less that it's a negative of the game, rather that the RNG aspect on top of everything else prevents a sometimes steep learning curve that trains a player to understand optimal processes, but to also know that those optimal processes may never happen in one settlement and perhaps always happen in the next. Adaptation and flexibility are 100% essential to play against the storm because of this, and something to consider if you want to play the game. Oh, and there's one more intense and often brutal aspect of this game, and it is the difficulty levels. There's 25 of them. I won't spend long on this because, well, I suck at higher difficulties and don't want to talk about it, but I do believe it's important to let people know what they're getting into. Yes, there are 25 levels of difficulty in this game. The first 4 levels are designed to get your feet wet and used to the game, where the seasonal conditions get increasingly more intense with less positive effects and more negative ones. Progress beyond that and you've entered the prestige levels, where the most negative conditions are still in effect, but now you have increasingly more brutal effects piled on top of them, like higher food consumption, devalued goods, villagers lose resolve faster, buildings cost more, even fewer blueprint selections. I myself have never gotten past Prestige 2, which is just 6 levels up on the difficulty ladder, although I can't tell you it's because I've yet to master the min-max element of the game. Now, why would you want to push into those higher prestige levels anyways? It goes back to the gameplay loop from earlier. The ancient seals that you need to reforge come with both a seal fragment cost and a minimum difficulty setting. If you want to beat the game, you'll need to be able to play at those higher prestige levels in order to reforge the highest tier ancient seals, with the last adamantine seal requiring a prestige 20 settlement run, the brutalist of the brutal setting. And then on completion of that seal, you win the game. Sort of. Just in time for the 1.0 launch is the Queen's Hand mode, which unlocks after that prestige 20 adamantine seal. This mode starts you over entirely on a new profile, not erasing the old one, where you have a single cycle of the game to reach the adamantine seal and reforge it, where one failed settlement will force you to start over from the beginning again. It's the ultimate test to see just how good your governing skills are, and I will admit, I'll never get there, although I'll give a huge shout out to Ron Empire as he has already completed the mode in just a single week after getting early access to the 1.0 build. So if you're a completionist, this is your roadmap. Increasingly brutal effects that you'll definitely need to min-max to win on. If you're not a completionist, you're more than welcome to hang out with me on the difficulty level of your ability and simply have fun with an interesting city builder, just like I did for my first 60 hours of playing. There's one more crucial part to consider, and it's the developers. No tagline needed here. One thing I mentioned about Against the Storm from the beginning of the video, and it's the last big segment of this review, it's been in early access. Against the Storm released into early access late 2022, and its developers, Eremite Games, have continuously provided an update every 2 weeks, consistently, religiously, since early access launch. These updates entailed new species, entirely new mechanics like the rain punk systems and settlement trading, refinements to previous mechanics, balances, bug fixes, you've named it, they've probably done it. I've had plenty of discussions with people across the gaming community boasting about Eremite Games because they are the pinnacle example of a developer that's doing early access correctly. And even when they push those new updates, it doesn't even break the profile. At most, you lose your progress in the current cycle. But even then, they give you some resources to help bandage the pain of losing some good runs. I can't brag on Eremite Games enough that they did things right. I have always been impressed by their consistency and the quality of the updates they provided. And with so many games having buggy launches nowadays and unoptimized messes, it's always great to see a developer get the love, attention, and time to do the things the way they should be. And now at last, my final thoughts. If you've reached this point of the video, you're either just absolutely relying on my final thoughts of the game to make your decision, or you really enjoyed my cadence and you just want to complete the video in support of the channel. I think it's pretty dang clear what I'm about to say next. Against the Storm is one of the best city builders out there, thanks to its deep mechanics and variety of options that truly make sure no two settlements work the same. The RNG aspect can be punishing at times though, and those higher prestige difficulties are places that no casual will want to attain to, which can make for some quite frustrating gameplay, especially if you want to actually beat the game. That being said, you can 100% play this game on the 3rd or 4th difficulty and have a blast playing a very unique roguelite city builder, casually progressing through the citadel upgrades and just enjoy building settlements and figuring things out at your own speed. And again, Early access reviews are at 95% positive, with over 15,000 of them at the time of this recording. So while I will 100% give this game a recommended purchase for your own sake, it doesn't need my approval since it totally speaks for itself. Thank you so much for watching this very chunky, informational, dense review. If you enjoyed it, please consider supporting the channel by purchasing Against the Storm using the link in the description, but also by giving the video a like, subscribing to the channel, and leaving a comment below. If you want to see an in-depth tutorial on the game, it's out right now for your viewing pleasure, so go check the pinned playlist as well. Thank you again. This is Havoc, and I'm out of here.